Chess has been around for thousands of years. There are multiple different versions of the game, and chess is different to a lot of other games because if you play a game like Uno, like there isn't really any like skill in Uno. It's just the luck of the cards. Well, with chess, that's not the case. You have the same pieces as everyone else, and you have to use your intelligence, come up with strategies, and just ways to defeat the enemies. It involves a lot of brain thinking. Chess is a game with a lot of brain thinking, and we have pieces, a lot of pieces. But what this video will be about is what is the weakest and strongest chess pieces. Now I will be going in order of weakest to strongest. Now before we get into it, just know that of course this is all my opinion. I don't really got any hot takes or crazy opinions, except for one, which is the weakest chess piece. Now I think we should just get straight into it. Now a lot of people will probably be thinking that okay, the weakest chess piece is obviously the pawn, but I beg to differ on that. The weakest chess piece is not the pawn. It's I know that a lot of people disagree with me on this, but the weakest chess piece is the king. Now I know what a lot of you are thinking, but the king is the most important chess piece. Yes, that is true. The king is the most important piece, but we cannot deny the fact that the king is practically useless, because the thing is, the whole aim of chess is to protect the king. So that alone means that you cannot move the king, because this is just how I play chess. The way I play chess is that I try my hardest to never move the king, because I know the more I move the king, the more risk that I will be, and this is one of the few reasons why I prefer the pawn over the king, because the king is practically useless. The king can only move in one square in any direction, only one. And the king cannot move into a square that is under attack by a opponent's piece, because if the king does that, it will be check. So realistically, you do not want your king in the middle of the chess piece, in the chessboard, because otherwise it will be game over. I know that some people be like the pawn is weaker, but I feel like no. I feel like the king's a lot weaker, because you cannot do anything with the king. Because all you have to do, the king, it's just no. The king is the weakest piece. It cannot do anything. It's not useful. Okay, how do I explain this? You can't put anyone in check with a king. It's impossible. Now you can use other pieces and then the king to put someone in check, but you can only do that if you are currently winning the game. You just won it in the middle of the game, decide to try to put your king, their king, in a check with your king, because that's impossible. Now this is an interesting move that the king can do with the castle or the rook, or whatever you want to call the castle or rook. The king and the rook move towards each other and swap places. Now, in order to do this, move your king not one, but two spaces towards the rook and you are castling with. Then place the rook on the opposite side of the king. Now, that is very, very useful. I use this a lot on the defense. It's really useful. Now, here is where things get interesting. Neither the king or the rook has previously moved. So basically, let's say if I decided to move my king, once, and let's say if I randomly decide to move my king forward for no reason, and then I move it back, and then I want to do castling, it won't work because I have already moved the king. And the same can be said about the rook. If I move the rook, literally anywhere, castling will be useless, which is very interesting. And there are no pieces between the king and the rook or castle. So yeah, as it said there, as I said, there can't be any pieces in between, the castle or the king. Otherwise, it won't work. And here is something else that's interesting. The king is currently not in check. Now, let's say if I put my queen in. No, let's say if the opponent put my king in check, and I move it, or I use a pawn to kind of like block the queen, I won't be able to do castling because my king has already been checked, if that makes sense. So in order to do castling, both of your pieces has to be left unaffected, and there can't be any pieces in between them, and you cannot be put in checkmate. Like, yeah, if that makes sense. Because let's say if you want to do castling and then a bishop came out of nowhere and blocked it, I don't know how to explain it. Alright, the best way to explain it is if your opponent put your king in check, you basically can't do it. If you move your castle, you basically can't do it. Both of those pieces need to be left untouched. If you move it once or get put in check with your king is valid, you cannot do it. Which, I only recommend doing castling as like a defense. Like, two reasons why I would recommend doing castling is it's really good at the defense, and if you want your castle or rook, I always call it castle, so I'm not going to be referencing it as rook because I always call it castle. So unless you want to get your castle in, more involved, then you would do that. So keep that in mind. Now the next piece I want to talk about is the bishop, or what I like to call them, the snipers of chess. Now the bishop can always remain in one square colour. Now I feel like out of the big pieces, I feel like the bishop is the weakest. Like, just because they're like the snipers of chess. Like, bishops are only useful if there's an other piece. If there's like an other piece there, if that makes sense. Because a bishop and a queen, like, they're scary together. But, a bishop on its own, they're just not that, scary. Like, you can find ways to make them useful, but I feel like that's like the only reason. Like I'm not saying the bishop is a weak piece. Like, no, it's not a weak piece. But in terms of all of the other big pieces, like the castle, the knight, and the queen, I feel like it's the weakest in terms of all of those pieces, and that makes sense. But this shouldn't take away about how cool the bishop is, or the sniper of chess. Quick word of advice: if you want to make bishops as useful as possible, always pair them up with a queen. Like, if you want to put someone in check, use a bishop and a queen, because together they are unstoppable. That's just the way how I play chess, and I always end up winning. So just keep that in mind. Now the next piece I want to talk about is the knight or the horse. Now, if you never played chess before, the knight will completely screw you over. Because I remember when I started playing chess, I could never understand how the knight works, because it just kept on moving. Like, the way the knight moves is unpredictable, because every piece has like a basic way of moving. But when it comes to the knight, they move in an L shape, which is just like two squares in one direction, and because if you want to get into chess, the knights are the one you should look, because the knights can really screw you over. Because I remember when I started playing chess, I always thought that the knights were confusing and weak pieces, but no, the knights are really effective and really annoying to deal with. And the the reason why, the thing is, I think the castle is just stronger than the knight, but I will get into why the castle is stronger than the knight. But just know that, the knight, it's so, like, I don't know if it's just me, but it's so annoying being put in check by a knight, because it keeps screwing around, just doing all of these annoying ass things. Especially if you're playing chess for the first time and the knight is just doing all of these moves out of their ass. It's really irritating. Very irritating. God, I hate knights. I hate and I love knights. Right, let's talk about the rook or the castle, or whatever you like to call it. So it can move up, down, left or right, stopping when it reaches to the end of the board, another piece, or when capturing a opponent's piece. The rook cannot jump over other pieces. Now, as I said before, I think the castle is stronger than the knight. Now, let me explain. I feel like castles play secondary roles to the queen. How do I explain this? Alright, this is 100%, what I'm about to say is very controversial, and 100, and I will repeat, 100% my opinion. I think, not like the people who think knights are better than queens, this just goes down to the sort of chess player you are. If you're the sort of chess player that likes to play, all the time with a queen, that you will never sacrifice your queen willingly, you will probably say that a knight is better than a castle, because you don't see yourself really using a castle when you have the queen there. Because what's the point of using a castle all the time when you have a queen right there? But if you're the sort of chess player that doesn't like to play with a queen, or sacrifice their queen at the start of the game, then those chess players will probably say that a castle is more useful than a knight, because two castles are almost, castles play secondary roles to the queens. So this really just goes down to the person's style of play, whether a knight is better than the castle, or if the castle's better than a knight. It goes down to the style of play and the sort of chess player you are. Now, I am the sort of... See, I'm a very unique chess player. Like, I don't always play with the queen, but I know how powerful the castle is compared to the knight. But as I said before, this literally goes down to what sort of chess player you are. If you're the sort of chess player that likes to play with a queen, all the time, then obviously you would probably think that a knight is better than a castle, because you won't really be seeing yourself be using a castle, because you have a queen there which can do what a castle can do, but 10 times. But if you're the sort of person that doesn't play with a queen, that likes to get rid of the queen very early in the game, then you will say the castle, because, well, the castle plays, as I say this before multiple times, secondary roles to the queens. So this just goes down to the sort of chess player that you are. So remember that will be very useful later. Strongest chess piece, well, it's no secret, it's the queen. Anyone, like even people who haven't played chess, knows that the queen is the strongest piece, because it can do anything. There is a reason why there's only one, at the start of the game, there's a reason why there's only one queen, because a castle, a horse, a bishop, there's about 2 pieces of, of those pieces that are mentioned. But with a queen, there's only one, because having 2 queens at the start of the game is just OP. I mean, of course, the king, there's only one king, but, that makes sense, it's the king. But we all know why the queen is overpowered, because the queen can literally do anything. Like a queen can single-handedly change the chess game. Like anyone who plays chess knows just how overpowered a queen is. And plus it has, long range and the ability in multiple, directions, which is just I don't know I don't know what to say about the Queen, because everyone knows that the Queen is the strongest piece. Because the Queen can literally do whatever she wants. There is a reason why that certain chess players will never sacrifice this piece. Like, you don't know how many chess games I play. I try to, because what I like to do is, like, sometimes I like to sacrifice my queen and the opponent's queen to make the game more interesting. But no joke, about 9 times out of 10, the person just won't do that. They are too scared to get rid of their queen, because they just know that their chances of winning just goes down really, really high, because that's just how powerful the queen is. Like, oof. Like, if you play Uno and you have about a pick up 4 card, it's basically like that, but just add about 10 pick up 4 cards, and that's basically the queen in chess. They're just overpowered. They're the strongest piece. There's no more to be said about that. They're broken. Absolutely broken. Now let me know what you think. Let me know if you disagree or agree with what I said about the knight or the castle. But that is it for this YouTube video, and I'm out.